So ready.
All right. Hello, everybody. I am Raina from Garden District Bookshop, and I am super excited to welcome you all here to our event with Stephen Salvatore and Jason June tonight. Stephen Salvatore's debut YA novel, Can't Take That Away, absolutely blew me away when I first read it. You follow Carrie, who is a genderqueer teen, through getting cast in the lead in the High School Musical and the backlash within the community that causes, but the absolute amazing rallying of all his friends and family behind them while they fight the system and ultimately, I wouldn't say discover their inner diva. They knew it was there all along, but we finally, and all of his friends and family finally get to see it out on the stage, and it's absolutely beautiful. And Stephen is in conversation this evening with Jason June, who has chapter books and picture books under his belt, but whose debut YA novel, Jay's Gay Agenda, which is a hilarious sex-positive teen rom-com, and hello, I'm totally in, debuts June 1st. And I am going to step back here and welcome them onto the stage. So, Stephen and Jason June, take it away.
Thank you so much, Raina.
I'm freaking out. I feel like this is like a live version, like a live reunion of Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion. I'm just gonna say that, like, I'm ready for.
I love everything about that. That is my second favorite movie of all time. I do like to rank things and lists in general. My first is Mean Girls. That is like an all-time favorite. But of Romeo and Michelle, who is Romeo and who's Michelle?
I don't. I mean, I kind of want to be Romeo, but I feel like I'm more Michelle. I don't know.
I think you are Romeo. I'll give you that.
Am I?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take it.
Craig says Jason June is Michelle, and I agree. And yeah. So your instinct is right. I am so happy to be here. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of the launch week for Can't Take That Away. That's something that no one can ever take away from me, is being a part of this week, and how honored I feel.
Yes. I knew that I wanted to have a conversation with you. I've looked up to you and admired you from afar, and now as we're debuting our YAs in the same year, I was like, we have to have a conversation. We have to like make this work somehow. So thank you, honestly.
I love everything about that. Thank you so much. I just feel like I recently came into my own as a genderqueer person, and just for everyone watching, my pronouns are he, him, or she, her, based on whatever kind of energies you're feeling at the moment. I tend to think that I'm more of a femme energy. And there is so much that I have in common with Carrie, and feeling so seen in some of their descriptions of what it means to them to be genderqueer, when we live in a world where the definition for genderqueer can be so nebulous, kind of where our definitions for what it means to be genderqueer for us or for Carrie are right and 100% correct. But then somebody else could have another definition of what genderqueer means for them, and that's 100% correct. So in a world where there can be so many definitions of that one label, since the world likes to have us label ourselves, it still was such a special treat to read Carrie describe things and be like, yes, this is me. And with my trusty little like talk show DIY, Can't Take That Away cards, that's the first one that I have, a whole card about gender. And if you could just kind of describe Carrie's gender for us, your gender if you'd like to. I don't want to cross any boundaries we don't want to, but just how you went about developing Carrie, their gender queerness, and what that means to them.
Yeah, so, I started writing Can't Take That Away. I was in therapy, and I was sort of in the process of like figuring out and like untangling my relationship with gender and trying to like make sense of the feelings that I'd been having, that nothing quite fit for me. and I love the way you know described it as like an energy, because that's sort of how I think about it. Like sometimes I feel more of a male energy, sometimes I feel more of a female energy, sometimes I just feel sort of like in between, not really something that I can describe, or at least in any way that makes sense in language that we have. And so genderqueer really just sort of fit and fell into place for me. And it's sort of like there's this energy shift that happens. Sometimes it's daily, sometimes it's unpredictable. It's not really something that like I can snap my fingers and, you know, like Bewitched or, you know, WandaVision, and all of a sudden like the world is like this gendered place that makes sense. And so that was something that like I poured into Carrie, and like I poured like all of these things that I was feeling and going through and working out into Carrie, who knows exactly who they are. They figured it out before the start of the book. Like I didn't want this book to be about Carrie figuring out that they are genderqueer. They've already done that work. Now it's just figuring out how to find their voice in that way that sort of makes sense for them. You know, using their newfound inner confidence and like putting that inner confidence on, making that displayed on the outside, I guess.
Absolutely. And I love the device or accessory of Mr. Kelly giving the bracelets to Carrie so that they can say like how they are in that day. And then we also see that reflected at the beginning of every track, which I love that the chapters are tracks. We'll talk all about music. That's so fun. And that to me was really such a magical ride to go on with Carrie when they're sharing with us how they're feeling that day. And I'm wondering what that was like for you, where there could be things that are similar between you and Carrie, but you're still telling Carrie's story. And I'm wondering how they shared with you in this specific instance of my life, this is how I'm feeling. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
that was, it does make sense. And it's a little, I would say it's a little bit more like nebulous. It's in terms of like how to answer that or describe that. But I think that a lot of it was honestly how I was feeling the day that I was writing. So it's like I kind of channeled a lot through Carrie. A poor kid. I mean, I did use them a lot. I mean, it's great because like I was able to like channel a lot through them and make sense of how I was feeling on the page in a way that like I'd never been able to for myself. And so it was really just an energy shift. And like there were moments where, you know, Carrie described like, you know, they woke up one morning and felt like a more male energy, and then suddenly throughout the day it just sort of shifted and they sort of felt a little bit
Yeah.
of gender dysphoria. And you know, I felt those moments of discomfort before. And you know, usually it's always triggered by something. um you know, it's hard to pinpoint exactly what, but little things. Like I remember just like being on the bus in school as a teen, and like something triggered, but like I didn't know what the hell was going on. Like in my
Yeah.
head I was like, oh, what is this? I just feel like massively uncomfortable right now, and I don't know why I'm feeling so uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Because you know, growing up, like you, like in my house and my family, like you didn't even talk about being gay. Like that wasn't like a thing. It was like my hairdresser, the hairdresser is, you know. So it's like there wasn't really much converse except for like Will and Grace, which like I remember like sitting down with my mom and watching Will and Grace and just being in awe of Jack and Will, and like being able, like them being able to like be themselves on TV, and like having no one in my family say anything about it. Like that was strange to me. So yeah, I don't know. I just never really had the words and feelings to make sense. But like, as I got older and like, I met more people, talked to more people, like started volunteering at my local LGBTQ center and like going through therapy and like working through feelings and things, like I was able to make sense of it. And then that's how I just channeled it into Carrie.
I love it. And it comes across so authentically. And you just touched on something that I felt was really well done when you talked about therapy, which is something that I regularly do and love and feel so like boosted by. But I was really struck by the different scenes you have with Carrie talking to Dr. Potter and in these therapy sessions. I felt like I was getting therapy with Carrie. It was so well done. So first of all, like, I owe you a bill for my therapy. Thank you. Um, and uh, how did you craft those so authentically? Were you getting therapist feedback? Because even these tools feel so professional. Uh, and I feel like a reader who has never been to therapy before will see from these scenes how beneficial it can be. There's not a stigma to it. It's about boosting you up. It's about giving you the tools for life. And kudos for that. And also, how did you do it?
So, I mean, I modeled a lot of it off of my own therapy. So getting to like experience therapy, you know, in so many years, like helped me to sort of like shape it. My husband is a therapist. So, you know, if something doesn't quite sound right, I can ask him like, hey, is this how a therapist would react? Or is this how a therapist would respond? And you know, like I knew how Carrie would react because like I knew how I would react. You know,
Yeah.
like there were little bits where, you know, Carrie would say something like, you know, I hate that she would ask me how I'm doing. Like, how, of course, what do you mean? How am I doing? I'm doing fucking horrible. Excuse my language, but I'm doing terrible. Like, that's not a question that you, but like it leads to other things. It's, you know, it's that whole process of like getting you to open up and do the work for yourself. And so I wanted those sessions to be as true to life as possible and to like destigmatize as much as possible and show that like Carrie is capable of doing the work. And they do the work, I think, in a lot of ways, with the help of Dr. Potter, their therapist.
Completely. And I feel like through those tools and doing that work, Carrie really prepares himself for taking this leap into auditioning for the school play, auditioning for Wicked to be Elphaba. And I feel like there are so many great parallels in the story of Wicked and with Carrie trying to show the world who they truly are by auditioning for this traditionally female role. Can you walk us through, like, were there a multitude of musicals you're choosing from, or was it like Wicked is the one to do? Why that was it? How did Wicked come into it all?
It was always Wicked from the beginning. I'm a big fan of Wicked. I've seen it like 4 or 5 times. And I've always just really enjoyed the story. I love how, you know, Elphaba is completely misunderstood. She's this activist who's just trying to like, you know, help, you know, save the animals, and she just ultimately becomes this martyr. And that was something that was really resonant. But I never, when I first started writing, I didn't know that a musical was going to like be the backdrop of the story. I originally thought it was going to be, you know, Carrie wanting to be a singer and maybe some sort of like battle of the bands type of a situation, which I had written a book, I want to say like 2013, 2014. That was very Battle of the Bands, that actually featured Chris and Monroe. And I plucked those characters out of that story and put them into this one. Fun
Wow.
fact. And so I was trying to figure out like what's the best way to tell this story. And when I first started writing, the first scene that I ever wrote was Carrie with the ruby red slippers. And so I wanted to like bring that in somehow. Like, why does Carrie have ruby red slippers? Why is this so important to them? And then it was like, oh, the Wizard of Oz. Maybe let's go to Wicked, and I could totally write about Wicked as the backdrop. So that's sort of how that came about.
And it fits so perfectly into Carrie's whole like persona of a amazing, talented singer and a Mariah Carey lover. Like it just all seems to be so seamless. Like I can't imagine this story without Wicked in it. So I'm so glad that that all came together.
Me too. I'm glad that that worked. It once I figured, it was actually very early on in the writing process that I figured out like, oh, we're going to use Wicked, and then it just sort of like came together in that way. I think probably like a week into like brainstorming, I was like, oh, we're using Wicked. This is going to be the vehicle for it.
I love everything about that. Um, One of my favorite things is how music forward this is, and not just with Wicked and musicals, but there are so many amazing like music references, music drops. The playlist you made is so great. We've got Mariah, we've got Troye Sivan, Sam Smith, Lady Gaga, so many amazing artists. I'm wondering, why is this so music centric? I mean, was Carrie always a good singer? And would music be so important to them if they couldn't sing as well as they can?
So that's an interesting question, and I don't know if music would have played such a big role in the. I actually don't think it would have played such a big role in the book if Carrie weren't a singer. And the reason why Carrie's a singer is because I always wished I had a voice, and that was a way for me to sort of like live vicariously through Carrie. Like Carrie has this big, amazing diva, belt, and they can really like hold their own against your Mariahs and your Arianas and your Whitneys and your Gagas. And so like I knew that music had to play a really big role in the story, but one of the things that I really wanted to incorporate was the backstory of Carrie's grandma, because Carrie's grandma is word for word, scene for scene, my grandma. Everything that's in the book about the grandmother is true. Like my grandmother was an incredible singer, like had this rich Rosemary Clooney type of voice. She used to sneak out of her house and perform in nightclubs, and her father, my great grandfather, used to forbid her from going out and singing. And she one night was approached by a record executive who wanted to sign her, and she was gonna like go meet with this record executive, and she found out that like the day that she was gonna go meet him, he died in a car accident. So it was one of those things where she never got to fulfill her dream. Like that for her, like, was the only way that she was going to like ever make it. And then something like that happens, like the universe, I guess, spoke, and she met my grandfather, got married, just became a housewife, and she loves, I think she would say that she was always fulfilled by taking care of her family, but the way that she would talk about wishing she could have recorded an album, wishing that she could have like made it, it just made me want to write that in a way. And I always wanted to write a story about my grandma, never really could figure out how to do it. And so this was a way for me to inject that into Carrie, and that's why Carrie is such an amazing singer, because of their grandma. And the love and support that the grandmother has for Carrie, I think, is really important in the story too.
It comes through so strongly. That to me, when I thought about this question, what you might say, I thought like grandma has got to really tie in there, and that it's so true to life where such an important family member in us can instill something in us, even if we're not. I thought you might say that Carrie, even if they weren't as good of a singer as they are, would still be music obsessed because of grandma. Like my family is that family that will bust if somebody says a snippet that could be a lyric for a song, they start singing that song. And I do that to this day, and I'm a terrible singer. And I feel like Carrie might have that in them too, even if they couldn't sing, you know? So I just love that this is a part of Carrie's heart that is built up by their grandma. And to know that that is true to your grandma, where the record executive died, and that is what changed her whole trajectory. Like, it's just those tiny little things, right? That could change everything. It's unreal.
Yeah. And my editor made me cut that scene down because that was like a 15-page long, like epic flashback. And my editor was like, this is kind of taking us out of the story. It has nothing really to do with the story that you're trying to tell. And I'm like, but it's like a cool story, and it's like my grandma, and like I don't want to like edit this out. Ultimately I did edit it. I think I pared it down. I think it's like maybe a page now, but it's a really important page to me anyway. I don't know.
Yeah. It rings so true with just like Carrie's love for their grandma, that they are always going to think about this moment, also thinking about what could have been for grandma. And now I feel like they are getting into the spotlight, not only for them, but also for their grandma. And I think that that's just really lovely.
Yeah. It's this motivational tool, I think, for Carrie. It's like, I want to do this, not just for me. And it is a lot for me, but it also is a way to honor my grandma, who always believed in me, who always knew that like I had the power and the ability to like stand in my own truth and to sing, because, she would always ask me to sing, clap for me and dance with me and sing along with me and harmonize with me. And so like she like bred me for this. Like, this is what, my whole life was sort of building toward. And so that it was the grandmother story is very important and crucial for Carrie, I think.
Absolutely. And I feel like part of their music connection, I shouldn't say I feel like, but I mean like Carrie really lets us know, is Mariah. Mariah is the queen of all queens, the diva of all divas. Why Mariah?
So my obsession with Mariah Carey is, I don't think that it can be matched, really. I have been obsessed with Mariah since I was like 6 years old. My wall in my bedroom growing up was plastered. I had like an 8-foot tall like poster that you would find in a record store, like as an advertisement. Like I had everything all over my room. Strength, it's not, I mean, like her voice is obviously unmatched, but it's always been like her inner strength and her story. And if you look past the glossiness and you look past, the hair blowing with the fans and the makeup and like the campiness, and which we love the campiness. I mean,
Yes.
Who doesn't love the camp? But like if you strip back all of that, and you listen to the lyrics of most of her album tracks, and she writes her own songs, like you really listen to the lyrics and she tells the story of who she is.
Mm-hmm.
It's just people weren't necessarily listening to that and hearing that. And there's this song from her Daydream album called Looking In, where she writes about how like you look at me and you see this perfect person, but you're never going to know the real me. You're never going to know that I hide all of my pain. You're never going to know that I hurt inside, because you just see this like beautiful Cinderella type of story and you think that that's all there is to me, but there's more to me. And so like that, I think, was always something that really grabbed me. And it's like, you think about Carrie, and not just Carrie, but like being queer, being genderqueer. It's like, okay, you can like present yourself in a certain way and people see you in a certain way, but that doesn't mean that they actually know you. You know, what they do when they see you is they slap all this shit on you, and you know, they put all their stuff on you, or they just take you at face value, and it's like, oh, you're gay, you're this way, you're bisexual, you're this way, you know, you're trans, you're this way, whatever, you know. And you don't sometimes like pull back and like peel back and see all the different layers underneath all of that. So I think that that was something that, you know, I thought about too when figuring out like, how do I write a 4-dimensional queer character in a way that like I've always wanted to see explored on the page, that would have helped someone like me. So that's, I don't even know what the question was. Oh, Mariah. Yes, we love Mariah. It's great.
But you all, that all made sense. It all tied into it. And it's just, it's.
Oh, I'm glad.
And it's so true, like talking about, everyone can assume that she is in the top most talented singers of all time. Just the range that she has, the notes she's able to hit, the fact that she writes all of her songs. And it would be easy for everyone to say, oh, her life is perfect. But that really does a disservice to acknowledging the multi layers that are in her. And it makes sense that that would be what Carrie identifies, all these other layers to them. And like specifically with outward appearance, I think that a lot of times people will think like, because Carrie is wearing a bracelet that makes them seem very confident in what their gender is that day, that means they're always confident, and there's not this struggle. There's not the struggle in figuring it out, but it's like that struggle exists all the time. It's like getting ready for this, where I was doing my eye makeup, or it was like, I have not been trained and I've been told I'm not supposed to have eye makeup, so I'm still really bad at it, and like it makes me so insecure. And like I can feel.
Yeah, I know. We were texting each other back and forth, like, do I look okay? How do I look? Am I good?
Yeah. Exactly. And so for Carrie to have, it makes sense to me that they would find solace in music, and specifically that it's that layer of Mariah that they are really attaching to. I love that. What is your and what is Carrie's favorite Mariah song / album, and why? And is it different?
So, I would say that my favorite album is definitely Butterfly, like hands down. It like just the poeticism of the lyrics, like amazing. As far as favorite song, it really depends on the day. Like today, it was so gorgeous out. Like it was 60 something degrees here in New York after like a stretch of really cold awfulness. And so I was driving with my husband, and I was like, I need to play this one song from her 2008 album, E=MC², and it's called Cruise Control, and it's with Bob Marley's son. And I just, every time it gets like beautiful, like 60-degree weather in the spring for the first time, like I have to play that song. And so today I'm gonna say it's Cruise Control, which is not even near like the top echelon of her songs at all. But I enjoyed it for today. Carrie's favorite song, I would say probably either Close My Eyes from the Butterfly album, or this song called Runway, which is a B-side. Did I cut out?
You did, but now you're back.
Am I there?
You're here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. My internet is unstable. I keep getting these messages. I'm like, oh God.
No, you're back. You're here. Well, now that we've been talking about Mariah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. This card is the Spring on You Mariah trivia card. So while we're going through some Mariah trivia to test Steven's knowledge of the ultimate diva, think about some questions for our Q&A section. So your first trivia Mariah question. What was Mariah's high school nickname?
Mirage.
Nailed it. And why?
Because she was never there.
That's right.
So they called her a mirage.
I love it. So which R&B icon is Mariah's godmother?
Oh my God. Patti LaBelle.
Yes. I was going to be like ding, 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 but you don't need any hits. You got it. So after signing onto a Gillette ad campaign, Mariah insured her legs for how much money?
$1 million, I think.
Change that letter.
Oh, 3 million?
Change the M in million.
Billion?
Yeah, she insured her legs for $1 billion.
I mean, listen, she has got some legs, and I wish that I had those legs.
I mean, my legs
That's
are
all
worth
I'm
like
gonna say.
$10 max. They're cute. So good on you, Mariah. Okay, next question. Whose baby grand piano did Mariah buy?
Marilyn Monroe.
Nailed it. Oh my God, none of these are gonna stump you. What Broadway musical included the song They Call the Wind Mariah that the diva was named after?
Oh, I knew that she was named after that song, but what musical is that from?
It's from Paint Your
Oh my
Wagon.
God. What? Wait, what musical?
Paint Your Wagon, which I've never heard of. I'm sorry, Mariah. Listen to it.
Oh my God. Horrible.
It's a Broadway musical from the 50s/60s is when it was playing, and Mariah's mom loved it. Here's a little bonus question on that one. During which Mariah Carey tour was the song They Call the Wind Mariah played at the intro? Did I lose you?
Oh.
They're really keeping us on pins and needles.
No. Oh. We'll have to give them just a minute and see if they pop back in here.
They'll be back, I know it.
In the meantime, everybody can think of more questions. They'll be back and they'll be
in no time. There's Steven. They're back.
Oh, unmute.
My Wi-Fi is terrible.
You're here.
Oh, okay. Well, that just gave me massive anxiety. So great. Fabulous.
You look great. You don't look like you're anxiety ridden for just even a single second.
All right.
So, do you know what music tour it was that the song They Call the Wind Mariah was played as the intro?
Her tour?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't.
It was the Music Box tour.
Oh my God, that's terrible. I'm just revoke my Mariah card. You're killing me, Jason June.
You're gonna nail it here, Steven, because I know you know this. How big is Mariah's vocal range? As in how many?
8 octaves.
Octave.
8, right?
My sources say she can hit the 7th octave, but in total her range is 5. But this could be wrong. I trust your superpower knowledge.
I don't know now at this stage of her career because her voice has changed. And we love the state that her voice is in, but I think at her peak, she was, I think, 8 octaves.
First of all, that's the perfect way to frame that, where let's just talk about, humanity. And so maybe that's today, but let's not shame her for what she could do before. She's been singing her whole life.
Yes, no shame. No shame.
Okay, you're gonna know this for sure. How many number one hits has she had?
19.
Easy.
Mhm.
And what was her very first number one hit?
Vision of Love.
You killed it. You're so good.
I mean, listen, the Call to Win they Call to Win Mariah one, that really just, I'm gonna get you back for that one day. So just I'm gonna put that in my pocket, and I'm gonna remember that.
I love it. While we're on the subject of Mariah, what is your favorite Mariah tidbit or fact or legend / rumor?
I mean, I always love the outlandish ones, that she like refuses to walk on anything but like red carpet, which is like wild. Like, how the hell does she walk? Like, do people just carry her around all the time? Like, like all those types of rumors are wild to me. But I think for the longest time, like, I would constantly be like, oh my God, you have to listen to this song. Like, it's about Derek Jeter. And like, people would be like, oh my God, another song about Derek Jeter. And then in the meaning of Mariah Carey, she basically like confirms that like her relationship with Derek Jeter was like fodder for so many songs, like years and years and years after their like whatever 6-month affair, their year affair, however long it was.
That's just, I have not read The Meaning of Mariah yet, but I have it in my audiobook library waiting for me because I need to hear her telling me all these secrets about her life.
It is honestly like, I know we're here talking about my book, but like we don't even care about my book anymore because the audiobook for The Meaning of Mariah Carey is the best audiobook experience you will ever have in your life. Like, she sings throughout. There's so much emotion in her voice as she tells her story. Like, there's so many like diva flourishes, but there's also like, you hear the raw like depth of her emotion as she like gets through some of the hardest parts of her story. And you will laugh, you will cry, you will sing, you will have the time of your life listening to this audiobook. Also,
I love everything.
I'm gonna plug the audiobook for Can't Take That Away. Because the narrator of the audiobook, Logan Rosos, narrated Felix Ever After. And when I tell you, like, I started listening to my audiobook, I think yesterday I bought it and I started listening to it, and I threw my phone. I was like, oh my God, because I had like these chills because it was Carrie's voice. And it was just like a magical, wonderful, beautiful experience. And so I need to like squirrel away time for like a day and just like immerse myself in the audiobook, because I know it's just going to be beautiful the rest of it. So get the audiobook, people. That's all I'm saying.
I love everything about that, especially because this whole journey is so musical. So I'm wondering, do they sing Carrie's original music? Is it sung in the audiobook? And also on that, do you know the tune to Carrie's stuff, Carrie's original music?
I do. So I don't know if Logan, I'm going to say there is no singing in the audiobook. I actually did approach my editor with that. I was like, is there a way that we could get somebody to sing and maybe create like a sparse little tune for the book? And there just wasn't any time to do that before. Like, I guess it takes a long time to like get the audiobook. I had no idea like timetables because all that stuff is new to me.
Yeah.
But I guess there just wasn't any time for that. And so I don't know, maybe if the book blows up and I have a little extra cash lying around, I can pay somebody to like record a version of Carrie's song that they sing. And they actually, in the book, they write 2 songs. The lyrics of the song I'm Ready are actually at the front of the book. And then they appear in bits and pieces throughout the story. And when I wrote the lyrics to that, I kind of did it to the tune of Kesha's Rainbow. Because I was in like a deep Kesha place when I was writing Can't Take That Away. It was like Mariah and Kesha and Wicked for some reason.
Love.
And the second song that they write that comes like towards the end of the book is actually to the tune of Always Be My Baby. So you can sing it over the instrumental to Mariah's Always Be My Baby and like the lyrics match up. So that's fun.
I love everything about that. Well, I will let us get to the Q&A so we don't hog all the question time, but I could talk about Carrie and their whole journey and your whole journey for hours more. This is so much fun.
I know. One thing too that, I wanted to bring up is like, it's wild to me. Like I'm getting a lot of feedback from readers, just like I've never seen a genderqueer main character before. And it's wild to me that that's not there yet, and that Can't Take That Away sort of is right now filling a hole. And I want more genderqueer characters. I want more main characters on the page. And so I'm hoping that, I don't know, we can just start to see more representation on the page. And I want to plug Jay's Gay Agenda, because Max in that book is literally like, I love that character so much. And so there is amazing genderqueer rep in Jay's Gay Agenda. And I'm just so excited for the world to meet Jay and Max and everybody else.
Thank you so much. That really means a lot to me.
Yeah.
All right, guys, are we ready for some questions from viewers?
Yes.
All right, so the first one I spotted back here from Dustin is, other than Wicked, what are your favorite Broadway or movie musicals?
Oh my God. Okay, so other than Wicked, I love Hedwig and the Angry Inch. That show is it blew me away. I also have a soft spot in my heart for Beauty and the Beast, which hasn't been on Broadway in like 15 or 20 years. But that was the first Broadway musical I ever saw back in like 94 or something, like when it first came out. And I got to go backstage and I met the cast. And that was just a really, really cool experience. And so I remember the Beast's transformation on stage, like he was lifted up into the air as this like costume beast. And then all of a sudden, like, as he's like wriggling through the air, like this beautiful man emerges. And I was like, this is real life magic. And so like that will always have a special place in my heart, I think.
Awesome. Melissa also asked, and you kind of touched on this too, the music you listened to while you were writing. Yes. So did you have, I know you made a Spotify list. Is that some of the music you were listening to?
Yes. So all of the music that's on the official Spotify playlist, so there is a version of that playlist in the back of Can't Take That Away. There's Bloomsbury's official Spotify account has a playlist for it that if you head to my Instagram, there's a follow code that you can just scan that and it'll take you right to the playlist. Or you could build your own if you don't have Spotify and you want to do it on like Apple Music or iTunes or whatever. But yeah, all that music, like Sam Smith, Troye Sivan, Kesha a lot I listened to, Whitney Houston. So I built this playlist of like big divas. And so I was listening to that a lot. And obviously Wicked, and yeah.
So Melissa also asked if you can tell us about the genesis of the Ruby Slippers. How did you meet Carrie?
Yes. So the ruby slippers. So that's a story that when I was young, my best friends who are twins, who are Monroe and Joey in the book, are based on them. And they know this already. So it's no surprise. But my best friends growing up had a pair of ruby red slippers, and they were not the kind of girls that wore ruby red slippers or sequins or like girly things of any kind, and everybody always tried to dress them up as, you know, stereotypical girls and like fluffy things, but they were not having it. And so when I went over and I spent like every single day at their house from the time I was like 6 months old until I was like in like fourth grade, I would like wear their stuff, and I would take the ruby red slippers, and like they were my ruby red slippers. And so that was really important to me. And so while I was like in therapy and going through, you know, sorting through my gender stuff, and that sort of emerged as the first thing on the page, I knew that like I had to give Carrie a similar sort of backstory to that. And so that's how that played into the, and so in the story, and Can't Take That Away, the ruby red slippers are an important symbol for them, and they keep them in their locker. And you know, it's just a reminder of like who they are, basically.
I love that. I love that story. Craig asked, have you met Mariah, and do you think she'll read this book?
So I have met Mariah. I met her in 2009. She was doing a signing at Macy's, and I waited in line, and I spent $300 on her perfume just so that I could meet her. And I regret absolutely nothing. The perfume smelled like marshmallows, and it was like this like earthy sort of like lavender marshmallow deliciousness. I don't know, but I did meet her. She was so sweet. I almost met her backstage at TRL, back when TRL was a thing, back when, you know, and I don't know, I feel like they're bringing back TRL, or they brought it back. I heard that somewhere. I don't know. Maybe I just am lying. But I like just like missed her. But she's super sweet. She's really humble, very gracious, like not at all like the big diva personality. Like she's actually quite timid. Um, and I have no idea if she's going to read the book. I would love to. My agent reached out to her publicist. We haven't heard anything. Someone from her camp reached out to me on Twitter. I don't know. We'll see.
That would be amazing.
Let's blow the book up, and like then she can't ignore it. So like buy multiple copies, people.
Rena asked about your writing process. Are you a plotter? Do you wing it?
I'm kind of a mix, but really more of a pantser. I really just fly by the seat of my pants. I always start with a character. The character has to be fully formed before I move forward. I need to know who they are. I need to know their backstory. I need to know where they're going. I need to know like every little bit of their personality. And then the plot sort of comes later. And as I start writing, I don't always have, you know, an end result in mind. I don't even have like a really clear trajectory in mind. But what I do is, once I have a clear sense of who the character is and who the other key characters are, I tend to do like just a very basic 3-act, like, here's what happens in act 1, a couple bullet points. Here's what happens in act 2, a couple bullet points. Here's what happens in act 3, a couple bullet points. And then it's like I have an idea of where it's going, but I let the characters just walk around the world themselves and figure it out. And if it veers, it veers. I just sort of listen to the characters as they go. I don't force anything, even if I was like, oh, but I need to go this way. I'm like, if they're going to the right, I'm going to follow them.
That kind of answered Rena's other question. Did you always know how Can't Take That Away would end?
I did actually. That I knew that there was going to be, I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but I knew that there was going to be I knew that there was going to be a joyous moment at the end. So that was always something that I wanted to make sure was there. How that came together, I worked on the ending, I think the most in all the revisions. Because endings are really, I don't, Jason, June, I don't know how you feel, but endings are freaking hard. There's so much pressure on endings.
There really is. You want it to be perfect. I lucked out with Jay that the ending that it is has always been the ending, which was nice. But in book 2, that ending is going to be different so much. I'm not even sure how it ends.
I'm honestly, I'm really, really jealous of that. And I mean, I love Jay's gay agenda. So I loved how it ended. And so I'm jealous that it just happened. I wish that it
How
would
we got there
happen.
changed a lot, but
As it always does. I think that's just the nature of the writing process. And, you just have to be open to that. I tell my students all the time, you have to be open to new possibilities and to revising and to changing things if you're so rigid. And I think I had a lot of growing to do as a writer myself until I got to where I'm at now, where if someone told me one thing wasn't working, I tried to make it work so damn much that it exhausted me, and it was overworking the books that I would write. And now looking back at it, it's all the stories I wrote, before Carrie were way too overworked, because I was just trying to make things happen.
Mm-hmm.
So Melissa has another question. What does the process look like for you getting to know your characters fully? So how do you go about doing that?
So I honestly just make a document, and I have this character chart that I made for my students, my creative writing students, where it's you could fill out everything from eye color, hair color, body type, to hobbies and, family members and all of that. And sometimes I do that for my characters. Other times I really just think about what their wants are, what their needs are, what they're willing to do to get that, and what they aren't willing to do to get that. And, really just physical appearance is important to me, because I know that as a queer person, it's well, fuck, we don't want to be defined by our physical appearances. But as God creating characters, I'm also and this is how this character looks, and this is part of their personality, even though it's not and can't take that away. I don't think that Carrie is defined by how they look at all. It's just one facet of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Carrie is really more defined by their personality and the things that scare them and the things that excite them. And so that's really kind of what I focus on, is the human emotions and what drives me. What's going to motivate me, what's going to inspire me, what's going to make me afraid. And so, I think about that in terms of these characters that I'm creating, because I want to think of them as fully flesh and blood people that actually exist. And so I just try to give them as much dimension as possible.
All right, so we have one final, we'll do 2 questions. We have 2 questions, because the last one I've been saving. It came much earlier in the discussion, but I've been saving it because it's a good one at the end. So we'll do Craig's question and then one from Cassandra from earlier. Craig asked, what is the worst writing advice you've ever been told? And I would like to hear that from both of you, because that's always fun.
Ooh, the worst writing advice? The worst writing advice I ever got was, I'm not going to say who this is from because I do not want to call anybody out. But the worst writing advice was definitely, we don't need any more coming out stories. And as a queer person, I just want to say, fuck that. Because so much of the queer experience early on is coming out, regardless of how comfortable the person is, because you can be the most like, you could be Simon Spear and have like the best, most supportive family members in the entire world and still be afraid to come out because of X. It doesn't even, I don't even need to say because of whatever. It's just, that's just what it is, you know, like you can have those fears. And so for a lot of, I don't want to say for, I'm not going to put a blanket statement and say for every queer person, but for most queer people that I know, coming out is one of like, you know, if we're looking at life like Disney movies, like Inside Out, like a core memory, that is a core memory for a queer person, is like coming out, whether it's a good experience, a bad experience, somewhere in between. I think it's something that does stick with you for a while. So that was some really bad advice. Because I was at first, you know, when I first came out, I was writing coming out stories because that was something that I was going through. So I don't know. What about you, Jason June?
That is just really interesting too about what you're saying, especially because like if you and I walked outside right now in a public space, we will be constantly coming out from when we leave the door to when we get back inside. Even if we don't have to verbalize it, people take it from our looks. So we are constantly coming out, and that's just really, yeah. But the worst writing advice I ever received, that is really, really hard for me. I think it's mostly like related to, God, that is really hard because I've gotten some pretty sound advice. Like I started out in this industry being an assistant and an intern for a literary agent who was amazing. And so she really instilled in me a lot of what I think is great advice.
So what's the best advice? What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
That's much easier for me. The best advice that I've ever gotten, there are two things. One is it's out of your hands. Like once other people are reading it, all of their interpretations of it are correct. Even if you don't like what they have to say, it's how they feel and their feelings are valid and we can't change it. So like some of the reviews on Jay's Gay Agenda, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But I mean, there's nothing I can do. And then the other piece of advice is just sort of a colloquialism that you hear all around. And it's be prolific, not perfect. And I really, really love that because I could obsess on minute details that don't matter and then really prevent myself from writing all the stories I know are in my heart. And I want to be prolific instead. And so I need to come to terms with the fact that I need to be okay with things later on that I would have changed in the books that once they're printed, but knowing that I can't do that anymore. So that's that.
That's why I will not reread Can't Take That Away in its book form. I will only listen to the audiobook. That is I don't think I will ever read my book again. After the editing process, I'm done because I want to change everything, I think. So I'm not going to do that to myself.
Love.
All right. And finally, Cassandra asked, can you give us any hints as to what you're working on next?
And Jason June, I want to hear from you too, if you can. But I'm totally putting you on blast. So my next book is slated for March of 2022, and it's called And They Lived. It is a queer as fuck college set romance. The main character, Chase, is obsessed with Disney love stories and he's studying to be an animator. He's an animation major. And all he wants is his happily ever after. And then he meets Jack, a brooding poet who is just beginning to discover his sexuality. And so Chase has to navigate that. He's navigating, figuring out his own gender identity. And he's also dealing with a lot of body dysmorphia, and he suffered from eating disorders. So there's a lot of different layers in that book as well. But I'm really excited and it's very, very sex positive, which we love sex positivity. Obviously, it's an upper YA. So I'm really excited for some YA with some sex, especially set in college. I think we need that. I'm also writing an adult book. It's a throuple romance. Or I don't even know if it's a romance because it doesn't really typically follow like a romancy sort of like, it doesn't have like romance tropes all that much. But it's all about a married couple who falls in love with a third, and navigating the messiness of that. And I'm also currently revising / I haven't really looked at it in like a couple months, but I'm revising a queer space opera that I wrote during quarantine last year when quarantine first started. So I have a lot of stuff that I'm like working on or that's in the works, and my editor has my option book, which we're crossing our fingers for. So like, please, like, hopefully, like, let's do a happy dance or something and like rain down good positive vibes. What about you, Jason June?
I am deep into revision on book 2 right now, and I can't technically say the big hook of it, but I can say there's 2 point of views. It features swimmers, and they are fake dating and expiration dating.
All I say, like, I know, and it's gonna blow everybody away. Like the world is so not ready for what Jason June has up there. I mean, there's so much up his sleeve. Are you ready? Because you're not ready. I'm just telling you this. So just keep Jay's gay agenda, and then whatever Jason June has in store, because it's gonna rock our socks.
Awesome.
Thanks. And ditto.
I just continue to send me copies of all of these. You have my email address. I'll give you my physical address. Just my inbox. Just keep them coming. Thank you. Thank you both so much for joining us, for doing this event, for the conversation was amazing. And thanks everyone for tuning in, for coming and watching. Yes, I will put the comment.
So much.
Yes, I will put the link to both Stephen and Jason June's books in the comments here. We have signed copies of Stephen's books. I will get signed copies of Jason June's books when it comes out. And have a great night.
Pre-order.
Thank you so much. Congratulations, Stephen.
Thank you so much, Jason June. Thank you so much, Raina.
Thank you.
And thank
you.
So
much fun. This was so great.
Yes, so great. And